Hey ho. Kristen, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
How's everything been going with you guys? Selling some stuff?
We are. Looking forward to get some updated information today because we're struggling. I'm getting in fights with agents right now calling who have different opinions. So
yeah, the struggle's real. It's a different time.
What about you guys?
You know, we have probably put maybe 6 or 7 under contract.
The last couple weeks or this week?
Yeah, last couple weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably about where we're at, like maybe 5, 6. So, but we've had 5 or 6 fall out too. So.
Oh, I hate that. Yeah, I'm trying to track down all the paperwork from yesterday's closings for Greg so I don't get in trouble.
Hey everyone.
Hello.
Oh.
Hi.
Jacqueline, I just sent you an email.
I just saw it. Yes, I did.
Oh, can you forward it to me?
Yes, I can.
Did you get copies of the checks?
I actually didn't even see it. Hold on one second.
For Greg.
Okay.
So if you ever watch any of my old videos, you'll notice the icons stay the same.
I don't see him in there, Kristen.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for waiting for me the last couple minutes. I've been getting off of that call with Chris Suarez. Minutes for everyone to catch up here. How's everyone doing? You can unmute yourselves and talk if you'd like.
Doing good.
How's it
Hey,
going?
Jordan. Doing good.
Good. Good. So we'll give everyone a couple minutes to get in here and then we'll get started. Has anyone been using these so far? And how's it been?
I have not,
Not yet.
but I know I need to. So that's why I'm here to learn.
Good, good. And there have been so many changes that it's like even when I get off the phone with the attorneys, I'm getting something different. So I was reading through and thought of things that needed addressed. Got on the phone with them yesterday afternoon. Stuff didn't quite get answered like I thought I wanted it to. Then I got a follow-up call later in the evening and he said, okay, here we change some verbiage over the next 48 hours. So one of the things to be mindful of with these, and I apologize if it was explained to me incorrectly by the paralegal that helped draft the forms, is that outside of the one that's labeled as the contract to buy and sell addendum, these are not addenda to the contract. These are just a freestanding document. The commission really, it starts to get murky when we start putting language in there, removing our liability on the contract. So these are just freestanding and can just go in with the file. Doesn't need to be attached as an amendment or an attachment or referred to on the contract. As far as the language within that addendum, what that one does do, which I don't know if you guys saw, it got uploaded yesterday. So I'm going to share my screen here, get CTM opened up. So we now have an addendum in here that has been shared with everybody so that you're able to go in and get your own version of this rather than copying and pasting the language on. As it goes through the file. Dog coffee. My apologies. So I apologize. I wasn't supposed to be in the listening time. So what you need to do when you're in the contract is down here, if you're going to use this as an amendment, in section 30, which this was from last year, so this actually is a really old contract. For this, there would be, this 30 is now the amendments portion, and you would refer to it as section 30 in the contract. And then you would say that there's an additional portion down there. And then in the purchase contract, oh, my apologies, that's why it's not in the purchase contract, it was in the list. CTM has been giving me headaches this morning as well. Here we go. So here's the purchase. So in this purchase, my apologies.
Jordan, do you create it for the address or for the property or for the person? The property.
So the way that it has it linked up in here, so I'll go in and show you the one that's an actual amendment to the contract. You'll refer to in section 30 right here as additional provisions, or 31 actually, is part of the contract. So that would be this form here that has been loaded in as the contract COVID addendum. So that one is the one that I'm referring to, that when you're putting in an offer, this is going to be the one. It states not only the sight unseen portion of it, to where you have the contract COVID addendum right here. So it's got two pieces in here that are both important, and one that's getting revised. So the two important pieces in here are 30.1. This is the one giving you and your buyer the ability to view it once you've gotten under contract. And I recommend doing this before you turn in earnest money, so that you don't have that headache there. And then 30.2 is the circumstance of if there is, shutdown or anything else that delays closing, that it gives you the ability to extend for a period of days beyond that. And I recommend 21 being what you put in there if you can get away with it.
Jordan, is that the contract COVID addendum?
So ours is different. So when you've got the one, let me get out of this stupid screen share if my window will get away from me on Zoom.
What was the period of days you recommended?
Recommend 21, seeing if you can get it there. And the reason is we had an agent in the office that did 14, and it wasn't quite enough for the lender. And then there was a headache that, the seller didn't want to do it because they didn't feel they had to go through all of them. So when you have the car approved one that was already on there, if my computer will cooperate, there we go. The car approved one that we already have on here doesn't address the buyer viewing it after, like a sight unseen purchase. So this one from car that I have on my screen here only addresses this part here, the COVID circumstance. What you would have to do if you use that one, if you use this one, what you would have to do is you would have to go put language in the additional provisions saying essentially what this portion does, which is that the buyer has entered without giving it a chance to see it within the contract, blah, blah, blah. So this is just more inclusive in that it covers both elements. So that's the only piece of an actual addendum. And again, when I was being explained this by the paralegal, she used the word addendum because 9 out of 10 people use it incorrectly. This is actually the rest of these down here. Right here is these COVID and these are the ones that the whole office has ability to see. I think these are my versions. This gives you, it's not an actual addendum. What it is it's a freestanding document, and it will pre-populate with the client's names in there. So for example, if you have the seller, if you're presenting the listing side, you would select the seller client one because the seller is your client. You'd create it.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you go through there, it will now pre-populate through the smart document, your name, the name of the sellers, you put the date for the contract in there, and then it allows you to go through and create all this stuff in here. Previously, in the way that I was teaching it Monday, was that you had to refer to this in the listing contract and then put it on there. You actually don't. This is separate. Where we are fixing this, and where my late conversation with the attorney last night was, is in this portion here, the COVID disclosure. This is just basically saying that, or I'm sorry, the assumption of risk portion, that nobody has, come in contact, blah, blah, blah. The problem is that when we have the contract stating at the time of signature, nobody has symptoms for the last 14 days. Nobody has been in direct contact with anybody positively diagnosed. It doesn't I mean, with the way that this virus acts, that may, I mean, you could go into a home, feel healthy, 5 days later, you start coughing. The way that that form reads now, you as a buyer's agent wouldn't need to tell me, a listing agent, that, which then exposed my sellers. So we're having language put in that'll be updated within the next 48 hours that says something to the effect of, should any of these circumstances change, it's your obligation to notify all parties immediately. So that way, even if 10 days after the showing occurs, the buyer starts coughing, we can at least give the seller, you know, any kind of heads up that we can. And it does say in there that we can't prevent it, and it's all to the best of our knowledge. It's just that one-time cutoff. I mean, that's like saying, oh, well, you know, the furnace works today. You're not guaranteeing that it's going to work for the next 2 years. You know, you're not guaranteeing that I'm not going to cough in the next 2 weeks. I'm just saying I'm not coughing today. We want it to also say that if you do start coughing, you're going to tell us so we can notify our parties and ourselves so that we can do whatever we need to do. So there will be some language changing on that. And again, this is just going to be one of those things that the first you want to do, and I'll share my screen again here. The first way that you want to go about this is you do want to try and get this form signed. If they don't want to do that, then in the clauses portion of your contract, all of these have been broken down into different clauses that you can access and tweak as needed. And so anything that says COVID-19 right here is available to you. And additionally, this one sight unseen with buyer objection, this is the one that we had prior to the one that has both of these pieces of language in here with the right of inspection. This clause here is basically the section of this form here. So that's going to be where you go in sequences. First, you want the form signed. If you can't get the form signed, you get it in the clause. If they don't want it in the clause and they won't sign it with that language, then just send an email saying, hey, you know, we're looking to execute this on the behalf of making sure all parties are aware and consenting to the risks of COVID, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, the question came up on Monday, well, what if the buyer's agent doesn't want to sign it? What if the buyer doesn't want to sign it? I said, well, you don't have to let them in the house. Your seller doesn't have to let them in the house. And do you want to do business with someone that could potentially increase risk to you, your family, your sellers, and their family, and not go through the process of acting in good faith with everybody? And that's a personal choice, and that's going to be, I think, to a degree, for the immediate time being, if not for an extended period, there is going to be that scale of business versus the health thing, and just what element people are comfortable to expose themselves to, and you can't be judgmental of it. People are going to have different viewpoints and have different concerns. We just need to be mindful of communicating that with all sides, and if our side isn't being respected, there'll be someone else out there who will.
So Jordan, so you're saying that we need the buyer, if we have a listing, we need the buyer to sign these forms before they see the house?
You don't need to. I mean, this isn't
It would be
state approved,
ideal.
so I can't say that you need to. There are two elements there. One, there's a business decision of how strongly do you want to influence or recommend this be there. And then beyond that is how comfortable is your seller with it. If you show that to your seller and they say, absolutely, I want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect all parties and they're not going to come into my home. And this doesn't just have to be the buyer and the buyer's agent for those disclosures. You can require that the inspector and the appraiser get that as well. And then just, they add their sign, you know, add their signature on. That's why there's a whole bunch of blank signatory spots, is for anyone that's going to be entering the home. And then it's ultimately up to the seller to decide. And they're just a steward of that decision. If they say no, we'd still push it. And then ultimately, if they say no, it's okay. We'll just be careful and go look around, you know, and here are our precautions. And I would over communicate everything with email and text to make sure that, you know, you're asking that they're respectful of the property, provide all the necessary PPE elements there so that they can protect themselves. And then from there, I mean, you can't force anyone to do anything.
Okay, thank you.
If your sellers really don't care, then, you know, I mean, as an agent, you can just pass that along, and then it's just your filter is just your own personal discretion there.
Okay.
So it's just really ultimately up to the sellers, and then what you're comfortable executing as well.
All right, thanks.
So what else? I'm gonna stop the screen. Just really isn't helping us now. What other questions, or has anyone come into any hurdles with this? I will tell you that you do need to be patient, and again, just kind of addressing the concern that or, you know, ultimately a termination on a contract that happened because of COVID addendum. In my interpretation of the situation for our client, this is really a textbook of what COVID is. She worked at a tanning salon that was closed down, obviously, and didn't lose her employment, just wasn't collecting hours. The listing agent and the buyer and the broker felt that it was a change of employment status. She was not furloughed. She was not laid off. She was not fired. There were no elements that needed to be fulfilled for her to continue work other than the county or the state needed to say doors can be open again. It states that if, you know, quarantine affects her job status, which if she's legally not allowed to leave her house to go to a place that's legally not allowed to be open, I don't know what else falls under that. They didn't see it that way. So with that, what I want to make sure everyone is doing is, as you take on new clients or with the clients you have with everybody, just make sure that you're over communicative on the fact that this is uncharted territory, and there will be instances where we feel something is black and white and someone else is going to see it in a shade of gray. And to just assure them that regardless of what happens, you always have a contingency plan, which you do. And that's what these meetings are for, and that's what the trainings are for, and that's what Friday is at 3 o'clock is just to keep updated so that we always have the latest information and tactics available, and just guide people with that in mind. You're not going to be able to anticipate everything that's going to happen. I mean, I think that this has kind of taught all of us that, and as we gear back into some semblance of regular or normal, whenever that is, you know, there'll still be these trickling, lingering things that'll pop up, or these surprises that we haven't encountered before that there's no way we can see another interpretation, and yet somebody else that's experienced in the industry reads in an entirely different way. So just always be overly communicative. I think Chris said on the web right before here, Chris Suarez said, you know, over communication is a good thing right now. And that's definitely with every transaction, we want to make sure that we're providing the insight for all the different variables that may happen. The biggest variable is the unknown. That's the one we got to highlight right now.
Hey, Jordan,
Yeah.
can you show again just one more time the form that you want us to use when we're writing an offer, where we could also include like the inspector's name and signature? Because I do like that idea of including the inspector on there on the buyer side.
Yeah. So, yep. Let me get there.
I think I saw it, but I don't think I mentally made note of like which one it is.
So the pain is that these are all legally, they all refer to different parts of the, or different parties. They're all titled the same. So when you're looking in CTM, you're going to see down here under the KW Realty.
Okay.
You've got this little tab here.
Okay.
So we've got buyer client, buyer customer, seller client, seller customer. When you open these up, the title looks identical. So just make sure you're understanding which one you're clicking on.
Okay.
And so, for example, if you have the buyer as your client, then when you get a buyer agency, you're going to have them do this one. And that one, you can tell how much I go into CTM with my clicks on Smart. It's my TC doing everything for me. Thank you, Angie. You guys are amazing. Just doing some TCs. So we get the buyer client one right here. I guess I already did it. That's fine. It's a closed file anyway. So this one is what we execute when we are doing buyer consultation that just basically says, I as a broker and you as a buyer we're not interacting with each other, with any circumstances, knowing this, neither of us have been exposed to anyone with a flu or anything like that. So that's just between client and the client and agent. Then there is the
Hey, Jordan. Sorry, what if we have an exclusive right to buy already? Does this become an amendment then, or how do we attach the?
No, this is a freestanding form. And again, I apologize for how I explained it previously. I was told by the paralegal that it was an amendment. She referred to it as both an amendment and an addendum, just because that's how 9 out of 10 brokers just refer to it. Technically, it's its own freestanding document.
Okay.
The only one that is the contract code addendum right here.
So you would recommend that we send that disclosure to any buyer that we're currently working with?
Yep, any buyer, any seller, yeah. Okay. And so for your example, Allie, where you have the buyer as the client, then you would also do the seller customer one. And it loads here. And then this one then states that you're working with your buyer. You guys have agency. So it acknowledges you guys up there. And then goes down, and then here's where you would have the seller sign or whatever else. So you can have the inspectors for the seller. So when you have the buyer side, let me pull the buyer contract back up. There we go here. When you have this one here, the reason that we have, I'm sorry, it is in the signatory one on the seller. So the reason we have these on the buyers because you're executing this at the time of ideally the buyer consultation. However, it's just the agreement between you and your buyers. This is just client and agent. This one is where all the customers and vendors would go. So as you are having the seller sign this, oddly enough, even though the inspector's on your side, since they're third party, there's still just a third party signatory on here saying that they aren't bringing in any of the elements.
Okay.
Up here. Same with appraiser or whoever else. And so on the flip side, if you're representing the listing, then you would have the buyer client or the buyer customer one, which makes a little more sense because then then it's everybody who's outside of your side of the deal, the buyer customer one.
So Jordan, I think I might have missed this. So when we have our seller sign this, do we upload it in RE Colorado?
I mean, you don't need to upload it into CTM. It's not going to have any bearing on the file. It's not going to have any bearing on lending. If you upload it into command, just under the miscellaneous, it's just going to be what we have on file. Should anything ever come to where we need to bring it up for protection against whatever.
But do we upload it to RE Colorado so that anyone showing the property knows the seller has signed it?
Yeah, you can definitely do that. Yeah, because I guess it wouldn't link up right away in CTM. Yeah, so that'd be the best way to do it is to just post that there.
Okay.
And just call with more questions or depending on if you think that's going to scare any agents away, you can just say, call listing agent prior to submitting an offer, which it should be anyway. And then at that point, we could just share it with them.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would make them feel safe that we got it signed.
I would too. I would too. I always want to make sure that I'm addressing both sides of the equation. And if you're more comfortable just putting talk to broker on there and then, you know, give them your phone number, obviously, you can do that too. I personally would upload it signed. Yeah. I would just say, hey, you know, here's the seller side that we signed saying that we're doing our part. Now we're asking you to sign your side. So if I'm going to post that up there, the blank one for them to sign, I would also post up the signed seller one that we got during the listing appointment. Because that's going to be, and Kristen, I don't know if you're talking and on mute, it has you kind of highlighted here.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be kind of one of those things that it's going to be really hard that if you don't have one, you're going to ask for the other people to do it.
Right.
So if you already have it there, I mean, that's like kind of when you post the lead-based paint up there, well, why don't you post one signed by the sellers? You know, come on.
Right.
Same kind of thing. So yeah, I would put it up there if you want to, along with the signed seller one, or just you know, due to, you know, COVID related precautions prior to any offer being received, contact listing agent for more details, something like that.
So this one with all the signature, the signatory on the bottom for the inspectors and appraisers and all that, is that the one? So should we request the buyer to have his inspector and all those people sign this?
Inspector, appraiser, if they're not doing a desktop.
And this
Yeah.
is the one you were saying on the offer in that section 31 would be the one you would upload as other documents that go with the contract, correct?
No, this one is just disclosure. Right, and that's why we have so many of these, and that's part of my pain is that these are all identical. 4 of the 5 of these have this same identical statement at the top. So yeah, so that was part, and yeah, we're battling with attorneys here on this one, and well, technically, I don't care about technically. This one that says addendum A, contract to buy and sell.
Yes.
This is the one that if you're writing it,
yes,
you want this one signed because it gives your buyers this portion as well.
yes,
If you're on the listing side, then what you want to do, I mean, just speaking from the side of working for our clients, if you're on the listing side, what you would actually want to do is that state one, because that state one doesn't have any language about the buyer not seeing it. And as the listing agent, it's not in your client's best interest for the buyer to have another out. They already have an out. So what I would do is, this is kind of one of those ones that if you're the listing agent, then in addition to uploading these ones, so you would, so we'll, I know, we can all laugh at this together, right? So if you're the listing agent, when you're on the listing appointment, you fill out seller client. With me there? Which has this wonderful 1 out of 4 identical title at the top. Lovely. So this is what you fill out for the listing. This is your name as broker. These are the sellers of the house. This is when the contract starts. This is the address. This is the brokerage firm. This is when it is signed. Seller's names again. Brokerage firm. And I'm getting this removed because I'm not going to sign every one of these, and this is pointless. I haven't seen this since a revision of a form that was like dated in 2003. So I'm going to get that removed. So when you're on the listing side and you're in a listing appointment, this is what you get signed from your sellers. You and your seller sign this one. Then the one you will this is the one once signed that you will upload into RE Colorado, along with, and I'm just going to close these out so we don't confuse each other ourselves, the buyer customer. That buyer customer one has all the signatories at the bottom. At the time of the offer, what you want is you want this submitted with the buyer's agent and any buyer signatures on there. And if they already know their appraiser, their inspector, you might as well go ahead and get it on there too.
But Jordan, if you are like working in my experience so far, it's like the agents I just for some reason tend to be contacting are like just way behind in any of these forms. And so I'm finding that I'm having to initiate and do this work. So I'm assuming that for this next contract I'm looking to write, I will likely probably just go ahead and send this to the listing agent along with like mine and my buyer's signature. And like, even though you're saying as a listing agent you should send it, it's okay as me as a buyer to go ahead and send it, correct?
Yeah, so I'm just playing this scenario out. If you're the listing agent, we can do the buyer next.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So as the listing agent, you are completing this one, which again, titles the same. So they look different, and if you look at them enough times, this part's different. So this one's with you and your sellers during the listing. You complete that, then you upload that to RE Colorado the same way you would like a lead-based paint, or if you were doing seller's disclosure or whatever else beforehand. Scope of water, permit, well permit, that kind of stuff. You then upload that into RE Colorado. Then you put language in broker remarks saying, please see, attachments when submitting an offer. Please execute with all parties that will be entering the property here, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And because you're on the listing side, please complete the CAR approved COVID addendum. Because you still want that extension if COVID affects the closing. You just don't necessarily want our version that also gives the buyer extra protection because you're on the listing side. So you don't care about the buyer protection. Make sense?
Yes.
So then at the time of offer, they're ideally sending in this CAR approved addendum, CAR approved COVID addendum right here. Ideally, they're sending this over along with this that has the signature of the buyer's agent and any buyers. Then you'll keep that form. Then when they have the inspector identified or whatever, and again, at the time of the offer, I use Brian, so I'm gonna have Brian sign these and just do it with the offers, if you can. If not, we'll just get them added on. Same with the appraiser, anybody who's gonna be entering the home, and that's why it's not, so when you look at a contract, if you looked at this seller-client one, when you sign it, you can see that we're all signing on one same date, and it's just kind of all while we're sitting there at the table together. When you look at the signatory, everyone has a date there because, again, it may be different people, different dates. We just want to make sure anyone that's going to be entering the home of our listing appears on here. So from the listing side, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Now from the buy side, if we are submitting the offer, then we have already gotten this one signed with our buyers. So I would attach this along with the offer, kind of like you do a lender letter.
Mm-hmm.
Again, because if you're asking them to sign it, you want to show that your side signed it too.
Yeah.
So I would attach this along with the lender letter, send this over. And then again, because this one, send this one over because we've signed it. Send this blank one over, which is the seller customer. And then this is the one you're asking them to sign, which then will also be where the inspector goes and the appraiser goes. And then also you will be sending over
Wait.
the actual contracted.
the seller, you're asking the seller to sign the seller customer form with inspectors, and the seller is not going to have those people.
No. That's what I'm saying is the form is original. So when you submit the offer, it's not going to have any signatory pieces filled in. What you were looking for is initially when the offer is accepted, you also want the listing agent and any sellers to sign here.
Right, but not the rest of the people. Okay, yeah.
Not the rest of the people.
Right.
And I mean, because you're sending this over, again, if you know who you're going to have inspected, you could send it over already pre-populated with your inspector's signature.
If you're the buyer.
If they know they're going to be the one entering in the property, if you know that's going to be the inspector entering in the property.
Right, but I thought you said that we were sending this as the seller customer. If we're on the buyer side, we're sending a blank of this form to the listing agent for the seller to complete. But
Correct.
the seller is not going to have anybody get in the house unless, yeah.
The listing agent will have been in the house and the sellers themselves will be living in the house, which is why we want them to sign it.
Yeah.
And if the listing agent has had, or if the seller has had anybody else in, or does have anybody else in, if they have any contractors in, so you'll want the inspector to sign it.
True.
Then
Like
let's say the inspection results in a plumber needing to come out. You want the plumber to sign it.
Yeah.
So this isn't a static form that is only signed once. You add people to it as people go into the house.
All right. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. And so then the last piece that you'll also have here is that actual COVID addendum, which is the one that gives us the ability to inspect it after we've gone under contract. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the state approved one, contract COVID addendum, which gives you the buyer personal inspection right. So the way that I would write this is I would, again, when you're writing the contract, when you're in the contract to buy and sell, I would put this as a date. So when you're writing your contract, there are two additional pieces or blanks where you can put more dates in. I always put walkthrough as one. That's always one of mine. What I would do now for this COVID is I would put section 30 in here. I would put buyer visual inspection. 72 hours. And then I would go up to the alternative earnest money deadline and make that 5 days after MEC. So that way you've got a little more cushion so that they can go and look at the property before they turn earnest money in. That way there's no issue on a dispute if they don't like the house after looking at it.
That's so smart, Jordan.
It's just an easy way around it. And so that's the way that you would do that. And then again, because this one piece is an addendum and does refer to a section on the contract, we do go put this one in section 30. And we will refer to this as, you know, contract COVID addendum A or whatever it is. And then you just have it there. And then that would be, I'm sorry, not additional provisions. It'd be other documents. Would be, it's referring the additional provisions, which is why you don't need to put the language in there. You would add the form in here. So the addendum for the contract to buy and sell, blah, blah, blah. Whatever this is titled here. COVID addendum A. So you copy that there, put it in 31.1, and then you don't need to put any language in there because that's what this does. If you didn't have the form, and if you resorted to getting the clauses in there, that's where you would put the clause in. So general buyer disclosure, so let's use one of these for example. The general buyer disclosure, let's say whatever. Actually, because this is a, or offer, let's say this is a sight unseen one. So this is the one that if we didn't get this sign, and we, like for say for some reason the buyer just didn't want to sign this. I don't know why they wouldn't. Let's just say they didn't, or the seller didn't want to sign this. Maybe at least they would sign with this language and additional provisions. And then if they're not going to sign with that, again, do you want to do business with someone that's not willing to be flexible during an international pandemic? So that's how you would execute it on the buy side. And then again, on the list side, you have more control because people are coming to you with this stuff. So what other questions?
Jordan, could we ask a question about showings, or is this not?
Oh, yeah, this is any kind of code. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I totally understand that we're taking the safer approach for most counties. I do have some questions about Denver and Boulder, because both websites mention that on a vacant property, as long as we follow the guidelines of sanitizing in between showings, that they can be done. Is it okay if we allow showings as long as they meet the criteria posted on the county websites?
And that's from the counties, like Denver County saying that, or DMAR saying that?
Denver County. I just had an agent kind of refer me to it, and it is on the county website under the Safer at Home in the FAQs.
Would you send that to me, please?
Yeah, I'll send you the.
Yeah, if the county is saying that a vacant still works, then yeah, absolutely. If the county says it's okay, it's okay. And again, and you know, I think I told you and Jesse this yesterday when you guys were asking. You know, I mean, I'm doing business too. I don't want to put any more handcuffs than we already have on us. I just want to make sure that we are doing best for the public and for our clients and being more strict within what they're telling us to do. Beyond that, don't do anything that they're not telling us to do. Let's go get some business. You know, I mean, within whatever you're comfortable. Of course, that's personal choice. Just, you know, the state has its mandates. We'll follow those. The county has its beyond that, and then after that is just common sense and doing what you're comfortable with.
Okay.
So yeah, if you could send that to me, and then what I'll do is I'll look at whatever you send me for Denver County and Boulder. And then I will surf through Arapahoe and Adams and Jeffco, and we have people asked, and see if there's similar language in there. And yeah, absolutely. If we can, anything that we can do to increase our ability to perform our job, I'm all for it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course, thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate you guys being aggressive and pushing that. It's usually my job. What other questions do we have in this? Yeah, this is anything COVID related. That's why we're doing them 3 times a week, is not only to update these forms and have more people accessible to these, it's also just to kind of keep in pace with things as they change day by day, which they seem to be. So please feel free to fire away any questions you have and let me know what else challenges you're coming up with or anything that you foresee in the future.
I have a seller who's going to be selling their house to their renters. Do you think I technically will need that addendum for that kind of property?
Yes, simply because once you enter into the transaction, there's still liability there.
Okay.
Yeah, and there still will be third parties coming in and out. There still will be inspectors.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
If the seller ever wants to go in and, you know, if there's anything that they need to remove from the property prior to whatever, it's better to, absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
I mean, if it's like one of those things that they're not willing to do it because they have a great relationship, they've known each other for years, you know, I wouldn't push it, obviously.
Okay.
But it's never going to hurt to protect yourself on that.
Okay. Cool. And also, if so, I have a buyer under contract, and they close in 2 weeks. We never did that addendum. Do you want me to still get that signed? Because we already had inspection and everything.
Uh, with this one, not even having the language of like the 14 days after, symptoms change or anything like that. Again, this isn't state approved. This isn't mandated. This is just stuff that we need to do to protect ourselves as we get closer to a closing.
Mm-hmm.
Liability for something like this popping up decreases because you're right, you're not in the home again. You've already been in, you're probably clear. So, yeah, so if you feel it's still beneficial to get, like if there's a post-closing occupancy or anything, or if they're going to potentially be exposed during a final walkthrough or anything like that, if the house isn't going to be vacant at that time, it may still serve you to get that on file. So again, just kind of one of those judgment calls that you only push as much as you need to. Definitely ask everyone at least once.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, we don't want to lose business over this. Lose a client, I should say. It's a judgment call on whether or not you want to accept business from someone who's not willing to do it on the other side, and definitely up to your clients to ultimately make that decision. But in terms of getting these forms executed and just doing that stuff, these are all just elective things we're doing to protect ourselves beyond what is required of the state for ourselves and our clients. So it's just a one-up, a plus, not a mandate. What else do we have? What else are we running into or feel we may run into?
So I have a client under contract with a new construction.
No, new constructions never really fell under the same thing because it's a builder, so they're construction. So I mean, they can still show homes during the whole thing anyway. They're just practicing the measures. And B, it's all builder contracts. If you could get a builder to sign that, then we need you teaching the negotiations class.
True.
So, yeah, I'd love to. The builders, I mean, they're kind of the cowboys anyway. They don't follow contracts. They kind of do their own thing anyway. So, yeah. So you're safe there. Plus, then if your client gets COVID because of Richmond, they can sue them. No, anything else? Anybody have any other concerns, or has anyone had any negative response to any of this if you've tried using it? And the clients, and again, I don't know if anyone was on this previously or at the beginning of the call, please keep in mind that as we're going through this, a lot of brokerages, and I think Ali, was it you that said this? I think a lot of people are just behind on this and they don't necessarily have this in place yet. So you will be coaching a lot of agents through this. You will be explaining to a lot of people how this works, because a lot of those smaller places just kind of bury their head in the sand and they aren't really as progressive as the leadership in our offices kind of pushed us to be. And then beyond that, also keep in mind, you do want to communicate to your side that regardless of what you tell them, how well they're coached by their agents, the other side, whether it's buyer or seller, there's always this small opening for the element of surprise that someone is going to get blindsided by a job loss, loss of a loved one, personal change in circumstance, or otherwise that normally exists. Is just going to be slightly magnified until this isn't hanging over our heads anymore. So just kind of keep that in mind. Over communicate with your clients. You're not going to ever hear a complaint that you explain things too much, especially right now. And agents that don't have teams or assistants in place, making sure that you are creating a system so that you're not letting anything slip through the cracks. Don't rely on memory. And even if it served you in the past, the way you've done business in the past, you're at home now, you have a lot more going on at the same time with a lot of restrictions on what you're able to do, a lot of mental stress that wasn't present before, and just a readjustment that mentally our capacity to operate on the same level may be there, and with everything else going on, some of those finer details we can't let slip through the cracks because it's not going to serve our clients to come back 2 days later and, oh yeah, I forgot about this text. You know, it's just, we need to over communicate right now. We need to bulletproof everything that we do, communicating with all of our people. And I would really implore you to reanalyze your systems, your follow-up processes. I'm going to put a walk on the spot here and say, you know, tap into them and just use their system, because their follow-up is phenomenal. And the way that they stay in front of their people right now is going to serve them when the market does open back up. And we all have an opportunity right now. I think Chris said on that webcam, on that Zoom right before here, that, you know, a lot of agents right now are working less. They have less to work off of, and it's just kind of this closing effect that if they're not in front of their people and they're not building the mind share for the business that's going to come, where they're going to be in a few months. So keep doing the work with your people, and, you know, plug into these resources. Don't fall completely out of touch. At the same time, as he said, choose your truth, and don't get so sucked up in all this stuff that you stop talking to your people and just going out and building value and creating relationships and nurturing them. So any last minute questions before we take off and get back to our business?
I have to say, I thought, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, just a comment. I didn't know that these meetings were about actually practical stuff. So I appreciate, I'm glad I got on. I'm glad you made it mandatory, because I thought it was just going to be wear your masks or whatever, but this is really interesting. So I want to keep coming to these meetings. So that was my, just a comment.
Yeah, and I was struggling with the word mandatory because you guys are all independent contractors. We can't require you to do anything.
No, that was good. That was good.
Yeah, it just, and that's what I want this to be. This isn't going to be, you know, wear your masks, and this is, let's practically get back into doing our jobs, and here are the changes that are coming in, and here's how we move forward with them.
So thank you.
Tessie, what did you?
So I know that it's been week by week, it's a little different, and it's different counties. Are we still doing just the one person to show, or has that changed from the last time? And I don't know where we're at with that, with the showings when people are living in it.
Yeah, so people are living in it. Currently, the stay in place has been extended for Denver, Adams, Arapahoe, Boulder, and Jefferson counties. So in-person showings are still not permitted within those counties, as far as I'm aware. Now, Danielle said that Denver County has some, as well as I think maybe Boulder, has some language on their county website that vacant showings are allowed. And so if vacant showings are allowed, I don't know if they have any language around anything else. So I'll confirm that as of now, and as of a statement Carr put out at 5:05 on Monday, which was from Dora, the counties are still stay in place, having showings.
Are we doing virtual then, if we can, with the sellers?
Yeah, I mean, again, so that hasn't changed, and that's kind of one of those, if you can get the sellers to do a walkthrough and just kind of, you know, video cam or whatever you're able to do at that point. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And then, of course, if that changes as I do my digging into those county websites, I'll post an update to it. What else? Anything? All good to go? Jesse, don't yawn, man. Go get another cup of coffee or something. Go do a lap with the kids in the sunlight. How's everybody doing mentally with all the parent / teacher / significant other at home / got to do all the chores / got to do more business / oh yeah, and can't go out and do anything with friends?
I'm over it.
You over it?
Like 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Well, I mean, thankfully the weather's getting a bit nicer now. We're gonna have some 80-degree days. Let's get outside and, you know, while we're being mindful of what we're doing professionally, take care of yourself mentally. You know, there's nothing wrong in just saying you need to go take a day, sit out in the sun, hang out with kids, dogs, whatever, and just disconnect. Overall, yes, we need to touch our people. We need to provide value, and we need to be doing more work to get the same amount of business now that we're into a shift. And at the same time, if we're not right between the ears, none of that's going to work at a high level anyway. So yeah, we're all over it. So if we can't change the stay in place, what can we change about the stay in place that'll get us back to our normal? So yeah, your happy place with sunlight and vitamin D, hopefully that'll help a bit. And then whatever else you can do to construct your day around those little pieces of joy that you have, we'll sprinkle them in between calls.
I'm not sure if Yale University is still offering this, but I am taking this course called The Science of Well-Being, because Yale University offered it as a free online course. And it's basically like a lot of science about the study of happiness and what actually makes us happy versus what we think make us happy. And I would highly recommend it. I am loving the course. So, and all the homework.
30-second